HMP Bedford stands as a formidable brick structure right in the heart of the town. It is a place with a long and rather grim history. Originally built as a county jail in 1801, what we see today is largely the result of a Victorian-era rebuild in 1849. This makes it one of the older prisons still in operation in England. Its walls have witnessed public executions and housed thousands of individuals over 2 centuries. The prison was designed during a time when the philosophy of punishment was starkly different. It was about containment and deterrence, a philosophy etched into its very architecture. These old buildings carry the weight of their past, a past that feels very present when you walk its landings. The Victorian design is a key part of the story here. Think of long, narrow wings radiating from a central point, allowing a small number of staff to observe a large number of cells. This radial design was considered revolutionary at the time. It was built for a different kind of prisoner and a different set of expectations. The cells are small, originally intended for one person in silent isolation. The windows are narrow slits, and the sanitation was, by today's standards, primitive. The entire structure was built for control and separation, not for rehabilitation or modern standards of care. It's a physical reminder of a bygone era, trying to function in the 21st century. This historical legacy presents an enormous challenge. How do you adapt a Grade 2 listed building for modern correctional needs? You cannot simply knock down walls or install new plumbing systems without confronting a host of heritage and structural issues. The layout makes it incredibly difficult to manage the movement of prisoners safely and effectively. It creates blind spots and choke points, areas where trouble can easily flare up. The infrastructure groans under the pressure of holding far more people than it was ever designed for. It's a constant battle between preservation and practicality, and it's a battle the prison seems to be losing. When you compare HMP Bedford to newly built prisons, the contrast is stark. Modern facilities are designed with rehabilitation in mind. They have better spaces for education, workshops and association. They are built to be safer, with better lines of sight for staff and technology integrated into their core. HMP Bedford, on the other hand, feels like it's being forced to do a job it was never meant for. It's like trying to run a modern software company using a steam-powered computer. The fundamental hardware, the building itself, is outdated and struggles to keep up with the demands placed upon it daily. This is the root of so many of its problems. The most immediate problem facing HMP Bedford is severe overcrowding. The prison was designed to hold around 300 men. Today, it frequently holds close to 500. This means that cells built for one person are now often shared by 2. Men are living, eating, and sleeping in incredibly cramped conditions, a situation politely referred to as doubling up. This constant proximity to others with no personal space inevitably raises tensions. It puts immense strain not just on the physical infrastructure like showers and kitchens, but on the very social fabric of the prison. Every single resource is stretched to its absolute limit, creating an environment ripe for conflict. This overcrowding is a direct contributor to the high levels of violence. When you have too many people packed into a small, outdated space, disagreements can quickly escalate. Official reports have painted a troubling picture of life inside. Prisoner-on-prisoner assaults are common, and attacks on staff have also been a serious concern. The prison's layout, with its many blind spots and narrow corridors, makes it difficult for officers to respond quickly or prevent incidents from happening. It creates an atmosphere of fear and unpredictability where both prisoners and staff feel unsafe. This is not a healthy environment for anyone, let alone one that is supposed to encourage positive change. Alongside violence, the prevalence of illegal drugs is a major issue. Drugs, particularly psychoactive substances like spice, create instability and are a root cause of debt, bullying and violence. They are smuggled into the prison in various ingenious ways, and the old building's design, with its numerous potential entry points, makes it incredibly difficult to stop the flow. The use of these substances can lead to unpredictable behaviour, medical emergencies, and a general breakdown of order. It undermines any attempts at creating a stable and purposeful regime, turning parts of the prison into chaotic and dangerous spaces for everyone involved. Tackling this problem is a constant uphill battle for the staff. Compounding all these issues is a chronic shortage of experienced staff. The prison service has struggled with recruitment and retention for years, and HMP Bedford is no exception. High levels of violence and stress lead to staff burnout and sickness, creating a vicious cycle. When there aren't enough officers to supervise the wings properly, prisoners are often locked in their cells for extended periods. This lockdown culture, born out of necessity, further fuels frustration and resentment. It prevents prisoners from accessing education, work, or even basic amenities like showers, making an already difficult situation much worse. A lack of staff fundamentally means a lack of control and a lack of care. The living conditions inside HMP Bedford have been described in stark terms by inspectors. Reports have highlighted cells with broken furniture, blocked toilets, and infestations of vermin. The combination of overcrowding and an aging building creates an environment that can be squalid and degrading. Imagine spending up to 23 hours a day locked in a small, poorly ventilated room with another person, with little to do but stare at the walls. This is the reality for many. The lack of privacy and basic decency has a profound psychological impact, stripping away dignity and hope. It's hard to see how such conditions could lead to anything other than despair and anger. This environment has a severe effect on mental health. The rates of self-harm at HMP Bedford have been alarmingly high. It is a stark indicator of the distress and hopelessness felt by the men held there. The constant noise, the fear of violence, the lack of meaningful activity, and the separation from family all contribute to a state of heightened anxiety and depression. While mental health support services exist, they are often overwhelmed by the sheer level of need. Staff shortages mean there is little time for the kind of human interaction and support that can make a real difference, leaving many to suffer in silence within the confines of their cells. The lack of purposeful activity is another critical failure. Rehabilitation is supposed to be a key function of prison, but at HMP Bedford it has often been an afterthought. When staff are stretched thin just trying to maintain basic safety and security, education and work programs are the first things to be cancelled. This leaves prisoners with nothing constructive to do. The opportunity to gain new skills, earn a small wage, or simply engage their minds is lost. This enforced idleness is not just boring, it's counterproductive. It ensures that many will leave prison with no better prospects than when they arrived, increasing the likelihood of reoffending. For the staff, the daily reality is one of immense pressure and risk. They are the ones on the front line, managing volatile situations in a challenging physical environment. They face the threat of violence, the stress of managing vulnerable and difficult individuals, and the frustration of not being able to do their jobs as they would like. The high turnover rate speaks volumes about the toll this takes. It is a demanding and often thankless job, made infinitely harder by the systemic failings of overcrowding, poor infrastructure, and a lack of resources. The well-being of staff is intrinsically linked to the well-being of the prison as a whole. In response to damning inspection reports, steps have been taken to try and turn the tide at HMP Bedford. There has been a concerted effort to recruit new staff, aiming to bring officer numbers up to a safe and effective level. More staff on the wings means better supervision, more time out of cells for prisoners, and a greater ability to run rehabilitation programs. Alongside recruitment, there has been a focus on security. This includes reviews of how to better prevent drugs from entering the prison, with new technology and search procedures being implemented. These are positive and necessary steps, an acknowledgement that the situation had become untenable. The government has also had to reassess how it uses its older prisons. HMP Bedford was, for a time, redesignated as a remand prison, holding prisoners awaiting trial. The logic was that this would create a more stable population and reduce some of the pressures associated with a long-term sentenced population. However, the fundamental problems of the building and its resources remain. These are not quick fixes. It takes sustained investment and strong leadership to truly change the culture of a failing prison. The challenge is immense, and it requires more than just shifting designations or patching up the most obvious flaws. The story of HMP Bedford is not unique. It is a narrative that is echoed in many of England's other historic city centre prisons. Places like HMP Liverpool, HMP Pentonville and HMP Wandsworth face remarkably similar struggles. They are all Victorian-era institutions grappling with 21st century problems. Overcrowding, violence, drugs and crumbling infrastructure are common themes across the board. These prisons are often geographically constrained, unable to expand and expensive to maintain. They represent a systemic issue within the prison estate, a reliance on buildings that are no longer fit for purpose, but which the system cannot afford to replace. Ultimately, HMP Bedford serves as a powerful case study for the wider crisis in the English prison system. It demonstrates how decades of underinvestment, combined with a rising prison population, have pushed older establishments to breaking point. While new modern prisons are being built, they cannot solve the problems of the dozens of Victorian relics that remain the backbone of the system. Without a serious long-term strategy to either modernise or replace these ageing jails, the cycle of violence, despair and re-offending will likely continue. The challenges faced at Bedford are a symptom of a much larger illness. Hit the subscribe button and check out the full prison series on our channel.